Mecca existed long before the rise of Islam. In the middle of the city lived a man whom people remembered with fear because of his oppression, Abu Jahl. He did not see humanity in the eyes of the slaves. To him, a slave was only a tool for work. If a slave became tired, he would be beaten with whips. Whenever they asked for water, he would laugh and say, "A slave was not created for water. He was created for work." In his palace, the sounds of screams could be heard every day. Some slaves would lose consciousness from hunger, but Abu Jahl would laugh at them. Even when a slave died because of hard work, he would say, "Bring another one. This one is no longer useful." The people of the city were afraid of him, but in their hearts, they hated his oppression and cruelty. Abu Jahl had a large furnace where the fire burned day and night. He forced his slaves to work in the middle of intense heat. If any slave sat down for a little while because of exhaustion, he would become angry, take his whip, and beat him mercilessly. People would look at him with fear, but they did not have the courage to stop his oppression. During those days, Abu Jahl traveled by sea in a wooden ship for trade. Dozens of slaves sat at the ship's oars and rowed the boat with all their strength. Abu Jahl was standing on the deck of the ship, holding a long whip in his hand. Every few moments, he would shout, "Faster! Even faster!" If any slave's hand became tired, he would bring the whip down on his back. A young slave who had become powerless from hunger and exhaustion could no longer continue. Abu Jahl repeatedly struck him with the whip until blood began to flow from the slave's back. The slave said softly in pain, "Oh, cruel one, we are humans too." This single sentence was unbearable for Abu Jahl's pride. In anger, he grabbed the slave by the neck, dragged him to the edge of the ship, and threw him into the sea in front of all the other slaves. The slave appeared above the water several times. He raised both hands for help, but no one dared to save him because of their fear of Abu Jahl. Slowly, the waves of the sea carried him away, and then nothing could be seen on the surface of the water. The ship continued on its way, but silence had spread among the slaves. A question was in everyone's heart. How long will this oppression continue? Years passed like this, until the great battle of Badr arrived. There, Abu Jahl's pride was broken. The man who considered himself the most powerful among the Arabs was killed in the battle, and his oppression came to an end with him. But after his death, people said, "Perhaps now the slaves will have some peace." But they did not know that Abu Jahl's son had an even darker character than his father. He took control of his father's entire wealth and slaves, but his heart was even harder than his father's. One day, he gathered all the slaves and said loudly, "From today onward, if anyone disobeys my command, I will give him such a death that others will not even dare to look at it." The slaves looked at one another, and they realized that the darkest period of their lives was now beginning. Days passed, and Abu Jahl's son woke up every day with a new cruelty. The marks of beatings remained on the slaves' bodies, but his heart still did not soften. One day, 3 slaves arrived at the workplace a little late because of the intense heat. One of them was an elderly man whose back had become bent under the heavy burden of age. The second was a young man who had spent years in slavery. The third was still a young boy who had been separated from the arms of his parents. Abu Jahl's son did not listen to their excuses. He shouted angrily, "Today, everyone will see what the consequence of disobeying my command is." By his order, 3 gallows were set up. The slaves were tied in front of the people. The elderly man quietly prayed. The young man hid his tears, and the young boy only said once, "I do not want to die here." But no one heard their voices. The ropes were tightened. The people's eyes filled with tears, but no one had the courage to stop the oppressor. Until sunset, the bodies of the 3 slaves hung from the gallows, and Abu Jahl's son looked at them with pride. But that same night, everything changed. When he fell asleep, he saw a terrifying dream. He saw those same 3 slaves slowly approaching him. Ropes were still around their necks, but their eyes were not on him. They repeated only one sentence again and again. The cry of the oppressed never disappears. He woke up from sleep, screaming. His entire body was covered in sweat. From that same night onward, he saw the same dream every night. He would jump out of his bed in fear, see the shadows of ropes in the darkness of his house, and hear the voices of those 3 slaves everywhere. During the day, he would pretend to be strong, but at night, he was afraid even of his own shadow. A few days later, he decided to go hunting to calm his mind. He did not know that the same journey would be the last journey of his life. After that night, Abu Jahl's son was no longer the same arrogant man he used to be. Every night, he would wake up from sleep in fear. Every time, he would see those same 3 slaves in his dreams. The ropes were still around their necks, their eyes were not on him, and they would repeat only one sentence. The cry of the oppressed never disappears. He would wake up screaming, his entire body covered in sweat and his heart pounding heavily. His servants would ask him, "Master, what happened?" But he would not answer them at all. During the day, he would pretend to be strong, but at night, he was afraid even of his own shadow. One morning, he said to himself, "If I stay in this palace, I will go insane. I will go hunting. Perhaps my mind will become calm." He traveled toward the mountains and forests with a few companions on horseback. The road was long, the wind moved the branches of the trees, and the silence of the forest carried a strange fear. Suddenly, he spotted the tracks of a huge wild animal. With pride, he said to his companions, "Stay here. I will hunt this prey by myself." He entered the deepest part of the forest alone. The farther he went, the deeper the silence became. Suddenly, he felt that someone was watching him. He looked behind him, but there was no one there. Suddenly, a powerful lion emerged from behind the bushes. The lion let out a mighty roar that sent the birds of the forest flying. His horse was terrified, reared up, and threw its rider to the ground. His sword slipped from his hand. He ran in terror. Every time he looked back, the lion was even closer. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Help! Is anyone there?" But the forest returned nothing except the echo of his own screams. The lion attacked him fiercely. He fell to the ground and struggled to free himself, but he had no strength left. The man who had spent his entire life ignoring the cries of others now found that no one could hear his own cries. A few moments later, everything fell silent. When his companions went looking for him, they found only his torn clothes, his broken sword, and the signs of a fierce struggle. They realized that the lion had killed him. When the people of Mecca heard the news, many of them remained silent. An elderly man quietly said, "Power, wealth, and pride do not last forever. If a person oppresses others, one day he will face the consequences of his own actions." From that day on, people no longer looked at his palace with fear, but as a lesson. The names of the 3 innocent slaves were forgotten over time, but their suffering and the fate of the oppressor remained in the memories of the people.